Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about Larian Studios. We're going to talk about Baldur's Gate 3 and Divinity and Backlash. And the boss of the studio, Swen, I think it's Vincke is how you pronounce his name. But he was saying that he thinks critics should be scored Metacritic style to be allowed to speak, and that, you know, sometimes the criticism just hurts his feelings.
And I say that's a pissy baby attitude to have. And there's a lot of criticism out there, and you don't have to listen to all of it. And if it's valid, it's valid. If it's not valid, ignore it. But I think telling people they should be reviewed Metacritic style because you hurt my feelings is really pathetic. We're going to disagree on this, by the way. So get ready, because Kneon and I are not in agreement here.
Yeah, we'll talk about. We're going to read the full context of what he has said. Now, it does come across initially as, you know, he's having a temper tantrum.
I read the full context. I stand by what I said.
Okay. But he's not wrong in the fact that there are a lot of reviewers out there, especially now with politics and shit, that they're going to be bad actors, and they're probably going to give you a bad review just because they don't like you for whatever reason. They went after him a couple months ago because of the AI controversy, and it was a non-controversy. They used AI for some placeholder art, and they were trying to get the game canceled. It was like, come on. So, I mean, in that regard, yeah. Now, it does sound to me like he just doesn't like people saying mean things about his game. You know what? Swen, is it Swen? The bear fucking is beautiful. There you go. That's a positive thing about your game. No, actually, I don't care. So let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, you'll get a woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
Go out to more.clownfishtv.com. That's moreclownfishtv.com. Help support the channel if you want to. And there's bonus content out there, bonus podcast episodes for you if you do. Thank you very much. Don't do super chats over here, so it's appreciated. So, yeah, so this is coming from Rock, Paper, Shotgun, and they just ripped the Band-Aid right off, because I think as critics, they're very offended, that he's offended by critics. Baldur's Gate 3 studio boss calls out hurtful personal video game reviewers. Sometimes I think it would be a good idea for critics to be scored Metacritic style. You shouldn't have to grow callous on your soul just because you want to publish something.
And I'm going to say that if you put it out there, then you are opening yourself up to all kinds of stuff. I've gotten so much shit over things like my voice and stuff. It is what it is. And you know what? A lot of it's just stupid. That being said, sometimes it's valid. There's things that people say that are valid, or things that I can do different that change it, make it better. But basically this attitude is, this person sounds like I didn't like what I was hearing. I was getting things I didn't like. So now I'm like, you guys shall be reviewed the way you review me. And it sounds like a bunch of childish bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, he does come off as being little petulant here, but it's interesting because he walks it back.
I mean, he got called out, I'm sure.
So here's the thing. Baldur's Gate 3 was a huge success. I don't know if they were fully prepared for it to be as big as it was, because they did the original Divinity, which was, you know, it was a good game, but it wasn't like the biggest thing ever, right? And Baldur's Gate wound up being just this massive hit. And when you've got a massive hit, then the eyes of the world are on you. And everything that they do now, like people before were kind of like, oh, what's Larian? Oh, Divinity. Yeah, okay, I've heard of that, whatever. Now it's like, oh my God, Larian Studios, Baldur's Gate is the biggest thing ever. So everything you do is going to be under a microscope, right? So, I mean, I get that. There's going to be, and plus, you know, it's getting all kinds of awards, nominations, and, you know, it's a game that people are trying to aspire to. Yeah, people are going to be a lot more critical. You know, it's proportionate with the amount of success you have.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't minimize like the fact that, you know, people are going to say what they're going to say. They're going to be right. You're opening yourself to a wider audience of people that are going to say things, but you're going to have to just basically grow a callus over yourself. Sorry, but you're going to have a thicker skin. Yeah. And you're going to have to determine what's valid criticism and what's not. And just because you don't like hearing it or hurt your feelings doesn't mean it's not valid.
Well, sometimes, I mean, how I handle criticism from people, sometimes even if it is valid, I just don't want to do it. I'm just like, yeah, piss off. You know, that's very simple. Just piss off. I don't care.
Well, that's
whatever.
true. You do that.
Your concern has been noted. Piss off. That's how you handle it. No, actually, I mean, sometimes people have good intentions. And again, you do have to, like you said, you have to weigh the intentions. Now, do I think gaming journos were looking for a gotcha moment? They seem to like Baldur's Gate for the most part, probably because of the bear fucking. But
I don't think it's the journos he's so mad about, though.
Metacritic, that would be users. Yeah, that'd be user
I think
scores.
he's mad about the comments users are making. I think it's a little late to be bitching about this stuff now, in my opinion, because that was a while ago. But yeah, we'll go back to what he said originally.
This is what I said originally. I think he took this down and then he actually
well, here's what he said originally, and this is why people are pissed about it and why he had to make another statement. But say what he said.
Okay, I don't like people shitting on things others have created. Putting something out into the world makes you vulnerable, and that alone deserves respect, even if you dislike the creation. It's easy to destroy things. It's a lot harder to build them. The best critics understand this. Even when they're being critical, they do their best not to be hurtful. You know, it's really weird because people accuse us of being very, very mean, but we're actually not. Like a lot of times,
we just state facts and try to warn people, and somehow that makes us the meanest people ever. So I'm here, they're talking about like how it makes you vulnerable to put something out in the world. Well, you know what? Since the dawn of man, we have been putting stuff out in the world. I'm sure they had critics. I'm sure people on the cave walls were pissing on the art. I'm sure they hated it. I'm sure that was like, what was going on. And you don't deserve respect just because you put something out there. Now, I honestly think that it's true. It's harder to build than to tear down. I agree with you. That being said, just because you built it doesn't mean that it deserves respect, or just because you built it doesn't mean that I have to love it.
Right.
And, I'm sorry, this is a very childish way to say it. I like to imagine it would, wait, he says here, yeah, because sometimes I think it'd be a good idea for critics to be scored Metacritic style, based on how others evaluate their criticism.
That's why we're here. I'd like
to imagine it would encourage a bit more restraint. The harsh words do real damage. You shouldn't have to grow a callus of your soul just because you want to publish something. It's like, yes, you do. Because if you're putting something out in the world, there are just going to be some people, you could do something with kittens, and it's the cutest thing ever. And there's going to be some asshole and his friends that are going to harass you and hate on it and vote you down and everything else because they don't like you or kittens or something. It is what it is. It happens.
Why don't those kittens have proper pronouns? What's wrong with you? Why aren't those kittens? Make them more gay.
Just because, you put something out that you think everybody's going to love doesn't mean they're all going to love it. Nah. And with putting stuff out there comes the fact that you're going to get criticism. And sometimes the criticism that you're bitching about was valid criticism. You just don't want to hear it. So if you have to vote Metacritic style, who decides what votes count and what votes don't? Metacritic style based on what you think should be valid and not? That's not the way it is. You look at it this way. You see something that's a criticism and you say, does this criticism seem valid to me? And if you're going to look at it fairly, you can discern valid criticism from just flat out trolling. And sometimes criticism that hurts your feelings is valid criticism when you stop and think about it.
Yeah, and then if you don't like it, you can just tell them to piss off.
No, I'm going to tell a story about valid criticism here in a minute. But, I'm just saying. Me? Yes, it includes you. Oh. But I'm just saying that, it's all how you look at it. And yes, people are going to say shitty things. But from what I've seen, a lot of things that are being said are valid things that are being said. You just didn't want to hear it.
All right. Do you want to tell your valid criticism story?
I was going to say, are you going to read what his new responses since he got his ass chewed out for that
there's like a whole big, look at this. This goes on for like 9
Okay, paragraphs. Well, then I'll do my valid criticism. So back when we first started doing Shadowbinders, like early on, like within the first book range, okay, some guys got hold of it on a podcast they were doing, and they reviewed it, which, we put it out there. It's your right to review it, right? So they reviewed it, and it only was a few chapters in. It wasn't like we hadn't really even gotten the story started. I think they were still up. Like she showed up on the airship, and it was like really early on. And they were mad because they said that the story it was taking too long to get into it, and they had some other criticisms about some things, but they were valid. So what we did was we put out things responding to it. I responded to them. I think I wrote them, and I said, that's actually some valid points you brought up. And they compared it to being what they compared to dog shit or something. I forget what it was. It was something. It was really not flattering. And I wrote them back and I said, well, yes, I can see where you're coming from, but you have to understand this is a webcomic. We only put a couple pages out a week. So it's going to take a while for it to get in past the introduction anyway. But they had some other points that I mentioned. I said, those are some valid points. I'm going to consider that moving forward. Thank you for your time. I disregarded some other things they said that I didn't think was valid, but addressed what I thought was valid. And then they actually did another episode talking about the fact that I wrote them, and then they walked back what they said. They said, yeah, we were being a little too hard on it. And I didn't ask them to walk it back. I just addressed what they said. And I said, you're not wrong about this thing you're a little bit wrong about, and I'll tell you why, in a nice way. But these things you have valid points on, and I'm going to try to do better. And they did a whole episode talking about how maybe they were a little bit too harsh on it and everything else, and that I wrote them back and that I was, really, listening to what they had to say. They just changed their tune a little bit. But my point is, they'd had some valid criticisms, and I could have been like, fuck you, assholes, and not listened to any of it. But some of the criticisms they had weren't valid, but some of them were. And by listening, I was making my work better. I didn't want to hear it. They sounded shitty and mean, but you had to get to the core of what they were saying to understand. Some people have a good point, but they just may present it in a bad way. And they actually presented it in a fair way. But I'm just saying, I see people that have valid points. They just say it in a really shitty way, but the point's still there. The corn is still in the poo. You just have to wade through the poo to find the one piece of corn.
I think, one thing I will say is that I've gotten a lot better about accepting criticism and letting things that are obviously not true roll off my back since we started doing YouTube, because there's a huge difference between doing YouTube and then doing like webcomics. Like a very, very small number of people read webcomics, right? You do YouTube and you get to a certain size, and it's like you got everybody kind of gunning for you. So.
I can't even tell you some of the shit we've gotten.
Oh my God!
Telling us to have our kids kill themselves. Telling us to kill ourselves.
I should have write back. I think one guy actually wrote him back and said, "Oh, get right on that. Bye."
Yeah, and there's I've gotten like a bunch of we had, like I said, we've talked about on Kiwi farms. There's rape polls and there's people trying to touch their kids and all kinds of
they're
stuff.
Just sad people.
Because they're mad about cartoons. All right, because we didn't like our criticisms about cartoons, which almost always later turn out to be true. So I'm just pointing that out there.
Actually, what I think a lot of, at least in the YouTube space, and look, there are some valid criticisms. I know we're not the bestest thing ever, right? Right. I'm very cognizant of that, right? But a lot of the people that come after us the hardest are actually people that either they tried YouTube and or Twitch and failed, or they never tried at all and they're just mad that we're doing it. And that's what you have to discern. Like, are these people actually giving you good feedback, or are they just trying to tear you down because they never made it? They never were able to do it, and they're mad that you're doing it. And I think in the case of Baldur's Gate, there might be a lot of people gunning for them because of how high profile it was.
Well, that's true. That's also but again, you have to discern what's what. But like being like, it has to be on Metacritic style. Why not Rotten Tomatoes style? So all your friends, the critics you like, could give you one score, and that would be the real score. And then the audience could give you their score. I know, but I'm saying that's basically what it is, and it's basically a cop out, is what that is, because you don't want to hear it. And I'm sorry if you had your feelings hurt, and I'm sorry people are way over the top. But that just goes along with it. When you put anything out there, anything you put out there, there's going to be somebody who hates it and somebody who's going to be very rude and unfair just because they can't, or just because they really feel strongly about it. And then you don't have to agree. You just take the criticisms and you look at them and you're like, well, this one seems like there might be a point here. This one, no. You're going to have to do it. You're just going to have to grow that callus, because when you're putting stuff out there, you're artists and you're just weak and sensitive. Okay, fuck off. I'm an artist too. I have a degree in art. I still had to do critique. I had to be critiqued. I had to sit there and learn how to take criticism and give criticism. It is what it is. We get critiqued like hourly.
Oh God,
over
we
get
critiqued within minutes of
in
posting
our comment
videos.
section, almost every video, and then
I don't
on
even look
the other threads.
I know. I don't look at half the. No offense, guys. I skim the comments sometimes, but I don't really look, because I know we always get people in there that are just like being assholes. But whatever. It is weird though. Like, you do have to kind of straddle two worlds. You have to be like, okay, well, the artist, it's kind of like the shredded mini wheats or whatever, frosted mini wheats. It's like, well, the artist in me wants to put my projects out into the world and be loved and accepted, but the business person in me says, fuck off, I'm gonna do what I want. And I think I'm more I'm more in the latter camp now. Like, I don't even get personally offended. People now they're like, you draw like dog shit. I'm like, well,
Okay, but
more
then
people buy my dog shit than buy your dog shit. So,
but then you said you thought he had a point. So what was this point that he had that you?
The point is about the critics that I think sometimes that they. I think you need to realize where they're coming from. And we run into this with Rotten Tomatoes too. They're like, we're a critic and we're going to rate this person with this blog the same as the person from like the New York Times. You know what I'm saying? It's very.
Yeah, but okay. So let's go with that. We're going to use it based on established, gaming sites or whatever that have years of experience in rating stuff. Well, look at Hogwarts Legacy. Did they get a fair rating?
No.
Even though these places had years of experience rating things. So that doesn't mean shit.
Well, okay, so it actually does kind of prove his point, though, in some regard, because you have people that had an agenda that rated it and they tried to tank it, and actually the public spoke.
Yes, but to your point, you said that I can see where it's like it was rated by a reputable source as opposed to the fans, and I'm like, well, look at Hogwarts Legacy.
Well, yeah,
it was
okay,
rated
so
by reputable. I'm doing air quotes sources,
okay.
and they didn't even play it. They just gave it a 1 because they were mad about it in politics.
Yeah,
so,
well, that's what I'm saying though. Like you don't know, but I think they also dismiss people. They're like, oh, Mick. Okay, wait a minute. I'm not done yet. Just wait a minute. Just wait a minute. But no, so. He's saying to rate the critics, like you give them more weight, I guess, based on whether or not their intentions are good. But there's no way to know that, again, like you said, the outlet. Now, the thing is, though, is that a lot of these game studios will just dismiss gamers if it's just you're just a YouTuber, you're just a whatever, you're just what. They might have a massive audience, and as we have seen with some titles, if enough YouTubers don't like those titles and the word gets out there with their combined platforms, then it does.
Okay, well, if you're going to do Metacritic style criticism and you have a YouTuber who might have a really bad opinion that's actually wrong, but they have a massive following who just likes to see everything burn, they could technically vote that opinion up as if it was valid criticism when it's not.
Yeah.
I think you need to evaluate the criticism by what it is and look for what they're saying. And if it's just downright dog shit and just nasty, be nasty, completely dismiss it. But that being said, there might be ones that read as nasty, but if you actually read what they're actually saying and you think about it, they might have worded it in a really shitty way, but they may still have a point, is what I'm saying.
So, okay, it's possible too that they don't, because we ran into this with like the He-Man stuff and the Star Wars stuff, whatever, all the shit that we get in controversy about, and we give valid criticism based on being longtime fans of the franchise. Like this is what they should do, what they shouldn't do, whatever, based on how we feel about it as longtime fans of the franchise. But all people see is, oh my God, they hated it. They're not actually looking into. Here's specifically what we didn't like about it. And I think what happens is a lot of people, if they're sensitive, they don't look beyond the headline. Like,
but
your movie
they're
or
all
games
sensitive anymore.
Then you shouldn't be putting your stuff out there. I mean,
you shouldn't put a callus over yourself. To
I'm sorry. I mean, this is coming as an artist, right? You do have to. I mean, I always talk about separating the art from the artist. Even as a creator, if you're doing a commercial product, you have to be able to do that to some degree. And I know people want to get all passionate about whatever. I had somebody tell me on the business side of things one time and said, never look at the comments, never look at the whatever. Look at your like your money, your sales, your engagement. That is your indicator of whether or not something has been successful. We've seen things that got tanked. We just did a video earlier today talking about Markiplier and Iron Lung, and it got very bad reviews. But I drove by a theater today and it was wall-to-wall cars on a Sunday, which usually that particular theater doesn't happen. I think they're all there to see Iron Lung because it was playing at that theater.
I can see what the seat sales were like, but
yeah. So it doesn't always. But I mean, I'm sure Markiplier, being a YouTuber, has heard all kinds of shit for years.
What else did he say? Like, this is his original comment, and then apparently he got
he had to walk it back. He
had to walk it back because he got a lot of shit. Why didn't you just evaluate it Metacritic style? Unless you did and realized, oh shit, I said a lot of shit.
Yeah, you've actually made it worse because here's pro tip. Not that the guy from Larian is ever going to watch this video, right? But if you even give a whiff of weakness or you walk it, you know what I'm saying? They are going, especially in this industry, especially when you are who you are, they are going to be like, oh, okay, that's where we stick the knife in, right? So now you look like a pussy. You need to be like you, Bowl, and just be like, yeah, I might, fuck the critics, and I'm gonna do what I want.
Just stuck by it. And for whatever reason, whether they told him he had to walk it back or whatever, he's apparently walking it back. So what did he say when he?
He said, well, here's what he said. Then we'll go into his correction here. There are plenty of games I genuinely don't like playing, and there are many more I know they're made for the wrong reasons. Money. However, it's, not that you're working on Dungeons and Dragons, dude, right? Come on, money. However, it's incredibly rare for one to be made without there being someone behind it that truly cared about what they were making, putting a part of themselves in it. Okay. Oh, God, just because people worked hard. Okay. One of the best reviewers I ever knew refused to review games he considered failures. So he wouldn't review games fairly if he thought they were a failure. He believed that developers deserved the chance to try again. He knew that every failed attempt could be what enabled the next great one. Well, how they know they failed if nobody says, hey, this kind of sucked, but here's what you could do better.
In this case, they didn't fail, though.
Yeah.
And the Baldur's Gate 3 wasn't a failure.
Be nice to people that create things is what I'm trying to say. You need them. And
well, okay, wait. Be nice to people who create things because you need them. This is bullshit. This ranks up there with, well, people worked hard on it. Yes, people worked hard on it, but if they worked hard on it, but they did something that people didn't like, don't you think that just makes you always above criticism? It's like you can work hard on something, but it has all kinds of flaws, and people can be pointing out those flaws to you, so next time you can do better. And then sometimes it makes you feel bad, like in the case of the example I gave you. It didn't make me feel great, but I also was like, initially I was like ticked, and then I thought about it, and I'm like, no, actually, there's some valid points. And that most criticism that's done in that you discern as helpful is there to help you grow. All right. And just dismissing everything because you're just mean to me because I'm an artist and I'm sensitive and you just need to be nice because I put it out there. One, that's not how reality works. Unfortunately, for centuries, everybody has critics. And two, it's like if you just disregard all criticism because you don't want to hear it, you're never going to do any better.
Yeah. So, I mean, is he talking about, I don't know if he's talking about himself. See, this is the thing. I wonder if he's just talking about the ecosystem in general where people go after.
I think he's talking about the ecosystem in general, but the point is that's every industry.
Right. He said, I get that people are charging money if you want to know if it's good or not. Right. That's true. Yes. But reviewers can just say, I didn't enjoy it, or I don't think it's well made, or I don't think it's worth the money.
Yeah, but they're going to ask you why. Because people are going to say, why didn't you enjoy it? Why do you think it's not well made? Like, why would you say that? Even people who support it are going to say, well, why? Why would you say that? You know what I mean? You're not going to get away with just saying it without giving reasons.
No need to get personal for the sake of some likes or headlines of your press. Now, the press, like, go back to Hogwarts Legacy, they attacked Troy Levitt, who had no dog in the fight, really. He was lead on the game, but they destroyed him professionally. The press.
Yeah, see, that I agree with. This part here, no need to get personal for the sake of some likes or headlines for the press. I agree with to a point. If you're just like taking it off, going off the rails just to go after somebody because you're mad at them, like they went after like J.K. Rowling and stuff like that, or Troy Levitt. Yeah. Yes, I agree with you. But on the flip side, a lot of those outlets did the same things, unfair criticism towards Hogwarts Legacy because they were mad about politics. But that's not really a fair assessment then, because you're not basing it on its worth or merit. You're basing it on outside factors.
Yeah.
Another reason where you discern what's valid and what's not.
Yeah, it just sounds to me like some people got their feelings hurt about whatever. There's probably people saying, hey, Baldur's Gate didn't deserve all the awards it got. And here's the thing, too. Again, you're in one of the cattiest effing industries. Mm-hmm. Like, if you can't harden your heart a little bit, you should not be in this industry. You should not be in any creative industry because for all this talk of like, kumbaya, we're a bunch of artists and we're making art. We're doing games because we love it and we're just all good people. Yeah, fuck that. It is one of the most backstabbingest, brutal, cutthroat industries. You would be better off working as like a bookie or something, I think, than working in some of these industries because these people will fucking eviscerate you. They will stab you in the back. And they'll laugh back. They'll be like, kumbaya, everybody. Oh, my God. But I've seen it happen time and time again with creatives. And it kind of reminds me of the lamb from Zootopia, where they play all like, oh, let's all get along. And they're all like demure and whatever. But they're actually vicious. And they're the ones pulling the strings.
I've seen that so many times.
Trying to get people canceled. So, if you can't take a little bit of criticism from the critics aren't even the ones you got to worry about. It's your own peers. It's probably the people working at your own company who want your job you got to worry about.
It could be too.
Yeah, I'm just saying you're going to have to toughen up there, Buttercup.
You're going to have to harden your heart. You're going to have to swallow your tears.
Get hard.
You're going to have to turn and leave them here. Sorry. It's like you're thinking when you said harden your heart.
I'm just thinking like, there's our new t-shirt. Neon says, get hard. Speaking of which, we got a
better
sponsor.
never.
We got a sponsor for this video. Let me bust out the bills. No, I'm kidding.
I was gonna say, I was like, there's a sponsor. No, I don't want anybody wearing a shirt that tells you to tell people get hard. That's really creepy. Do not. PC Games Inn, which is a very bizarre name for a website. It feels like they wanted PCGames.com, but they couldn't get it, so they had PC Games'em. And that's what they got. Larian Boss will weigh his words more carefully after backlash, says criticism helped him understand why Baldur's Gate 3 was shit. Wait, no, it wasn't. Wait, he didn't help him understand it. He was busy complaining about it.
Yeah. So he said in his follow-up message, he stresses that he sees great value in criticism, but admits his initial take.
That's not what he said.
Yeah, his initial take did not land as well as I intended.
How did you think that was going to land? At no point in what you said initially meant that you believe in criticism. Anything you said was not what you said.
He said, I really need to learn to weigh my words more carefully.
Well, the way your words were more carefully wouldn't have been the problem. You would have had to reword the whole damn thing.
I genuinely was trying to make a constructive argument, but phrased it poorly. It's been bugging me, so let me try again. My point was that I have an issue with criticism. Or wasn't that I have an issue with criticism. My point was it doesn't need to be hurtful. In my honest opinion, that creates alienation between people who have the same hobby and essentially all want the same thing, better games. Constructive criticism has a higher impact.
Okay, but the thing is, but this comes back to that same stupid argument. What's constructive criticism? Because we've actually given, opinions on things that we're trying to be constructive, and they're like, you just hate everything, and you're just mean. And it's like, they want to dismiss any kind of criticism at all. And then for Star Wars, The Acolyte, they kept saying, well, criticism is valid when it's constructive. Meanwhile, people are giving it all kinds of constructive criticism, but it wasn't what they wanted to hear.
Yeah,
so we've seen this before with She-Ra and Star Wars and everything else. Well, that's not constructive criticism.
That's negative.
Yeah, it was. It was constructive criticism. And a lot of people brought valid points, but you neglected and ignored all of them because it wasn't what you wanted to hear. And then you say, if it was constructive, but it was constructive.
All right, so he's getting it from all sides here. Look, I'm going to be honest. I think he is. If he wasn't who he was, they wouldn't be after him so hard. But
because they're going to come after him because other people say this all the time. They don't care.
Right. So he said he wasn't speaking to negative opinions of good games. They're being mutilated to turn them into money machines. Obviously, that causes a lot of frustration because it makes the games worse. I've been fairly vocal about my thoughts on that, and I will continue to rant about those responsible. Or rant against those responsible because they devalue something I care about. Okay, well, Vincke says his thoughts were on those who truly care about their craft and want to continuously improve what they're making. He explains that he's seen some developers stop reading critiques and comments after being affected by hurtful packaging of criticism, distancing themselves from their audience and losing all the good bits they can get from feedback.
Well, that's basically what I was saying too. But you still have to go through it and figure out and even some of the meaner comments may have a valid point.
Not to say their reaction isn't understandable. Continuing to engage after repeated written or verbal abuse requires growing a lot of calluses on your soul. Some calluses fine. Well, he said before it wasn't. Too much and you risk becoming desensitized. Welcome to the club, Sven. Welcome to the club. Personally, I got my first threats of violence in 2009, all because I was trying to make something fun and failed in that person's opinion. There's been a long list of things thrown at me since.
Same.
Yeah,
because you point out the obvious on many occasions. Same.
I am not as nice as I was 7 or 8 years ago.
You should have seen the stuff we got because I didn't like the new She-Ra show.
Holy shit. Yeah. He said it took him a long while to learn how to deal with the more vicious and unpleasant responses. These days, I still read the hurtful comments, but I focus mainly on the constructive opinions. They're the ones that help shape Baldur's Gate's success. He also stresses that, contrary to what's been written, I have a great deal of respect for game critics. Over the years, my job brought me in contact with many of them, and I hope they felt that during the many chats we had.
Right, but the game critics that he likes. The game, because he's like, I see negative comments, but, I look for the ones that are constructive criticism. The thing is, again, sometimes people will give it something, phrase it in a really negative way. Doesn't mean what they're saying isn't actually valid.
Respect doesn't mean agreement, but I appreciate what they bring to the table. Many ex-reviewers on the team. He said they're my first port of call whenever get hard. My first port of call whenever I work on something for too long and I can't tell if it's good anymore. That actually is true. You can actually be knee deep in something and not know how it's going to resonate with other people. Like it might be the greatest thing
they always say if you're too close to something, you can't see it objectively, which is true.
Yeah, and there's also sunk cost fallacy. It could be like I spent hours and hours and hours working on something, and I don't want to throw that time away. I don't want to start over, or it's worth something because I spent time on it. And it doesn't mean it's not worth something. It might be that that was practice for the next thing that's actually going to, resonate with people better. And that's the thing. If you're making a product for people to consume, and it sounds very crass, but that's what you're doing, right? I mean, if
And
not,
you're putting yourself out there, so you better have some calluses in place, because you're going to get people who are just vicious for no reason. It goes to the territory. But that being said, that doesn't mean that there are people that saying things you don't want to hear, don't have valid points. They just aren't being as nice as you'd like. Doesn't mean that they aren't saying anything that's helpful either.
So he said they have an army of former critics. But okay, I want to put a pin in this, right? I mean, I know we're going long on this one, but so he's talking about how they have a senior writer, Kevin Van Orden, he used to work for GameSpot, and they said that they have a squadron of former critics working at Larian. This is, I'm going to be honest, this is part of the problem with entertainment right now is we have so many people that were journalists that are now working in the industry. A lot of them were like community managers working in the industry. A lot of them were filleting studio heads or whatever to get their jobs in the industry. And then you have to wonder, and then they get in and then they start screwing things up.
Okay, well, the critics are the ones that keep saying like things like, oh, the Acolyte's amazing, where the audience says otherwise. So you're getting a bunch of former critics doesn't mean that you're getting objective people.
Right.
You're just getting people who, like have been kissing your ass for years, or may themselves just be like they're all about their own personal politics and stuff. And they aren't about, the game in general. Like, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of ex-critics, or there's a lot of people that are critics over at IGN and different like Kotaku and stuff. And we all saw what happened with, Hogwarts Legacy and things, even though they're critics that are there who weren't fair when it wasn't what they wanted politically. So that doesn't mean anything. Just because you have critics doesn't mean that they're fair.
Well, that's what I think. Really, my theory of everything with why entertainment has come off the rails over the last 10 or 15 years is we have a relationship that is too chummy between the journalists and the people actually making the content.
So they hired them to come over and tell them.
They hired them and then
tell them what they thought. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't go by them.
And this happens with the community managers too. So these people get on, basically you get like a bunch of Redditors in there. And I'm not saying this guy is or isn't. I'm just saying like, the comic book industry, I swear to God, half the comic book industry right now are people who used to write for comic book blogs. And now they're writing the books themselves. And the books they're writing aren't selling.
Yeah, shocker. Because they were never in touch with the audience to begin with.
Right.
I mean, you're better off if you have all this fancy computer stuff. You're better off to run an algorithm or something that's going through all the criticisms, good and bad, of a game and all the points, and then see what the most common negative points are. And then you can look at that and be like, okay, these are what's coming up the most often across the board with both with players and the trusted critics, and see what's actually coming up as legitimate or repeated issues that people have.
People also, I think, disproportionately weigh negative criticism, because it can be like, I mean, we get some shit in the comments, but then I look at like our upvotes to downvotes on YouTube and I'm like, well, a lot more people like the video than didn't like the video. It's just they're not saying anything, right? People will tell you if they're not happy, or they'll try to magnify it. My favorite is when we'll get like 3 or 4 people that say effectively the same thing within a couple of minutes of each other, and they all have the same, like there's 4 of them and there's 3 upvotes for every one of the, okay, yeah, Zach Puppet account. I get it. Try to make it sound like, they've got more weight or whatever. And it's like, I guess my thing is like, if you're trying to discourage me, dude, I'm so fucking numb to it at this point. I don't fucking care. I'm just like, whatever. And we've heard.
He's so numb he can't get hard.
Oh.
Sorry, you're the one who keeps pushing it.
Yeah, the word from our sponsor. You want to get hard? Like, yeah. No, but seriously, you do this long enough, it used to bother me a lot more. It does not fucking bother me, because I start to realize the psychology of it, that it is usually coming, in a lot of cases, coming from not a good place. So you got to kind of toss that out. But he's correct here. He said they'll tell me, they will tell me if what I made was shit, but they'll phrase it as such so it helps me understand why it was shit.
So are people that are giving you critique, they just are saying it in a way that you don't want to hear. Like they'll tell me why it's shit, but tell me in a nice way why it is. And I just got done saying, you can't just say I didn't. That was right after he got done saying, you could just say you didn't like it and leave it at that. Well, you can't just leave it at that because people are going to have, why is it the case? Then you ask your friends and they'll tell you it's shit, but they'll tell you why. Well, which one is it, dude? You just got on saying you can just leave it as I don't like it and not say why. And then but I go to my trusted critics that will tell me if it's shit, but tell me why in a way I want to hear it. It's basically what you just said.
Well, I think what happens though too is if you're very come out of the gate, guns blazing, people are going to dismiss you anyway. I think you need to.
Yeah, but I get that. And I'm not saying that, because you can have very valid points, but the way you present it gets people to ignore you because of it. And I said that before. But what I'm saying is, this is all very, at the end of the day, it's a subjective load of shit. It's like, I will pick and choose what criticisms I want to listen to. I'm just going to translate. I'm going to pick and choose what criticisms I want to listen to. My friends will tell me if it sucks, but they'll tell me in a nice way that they'll know I can hear it. It's a Disney. You tell me a couple positive things, and then you can tell me the negative things so I can take it, is what I'm hearing.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm also, though, I know that there are people that have bad intentions that are just going to shit on things.
And I agree, and I say ignore those. And then, but I also know there's some people who say things in a really harsh way, but they still have a valid point. And you have to be able to discern that.
Simon Cowell.
yeah, but you know why he does it? He doesn't do it as much now, but why he did it was because he was like, if I give them hope, they're gonna spend years wasting their life on something that's never gonna happen. And I think it's mean, but I also kind of see where he's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, to talk about the other stuff, we talk about on the channel, like Star Wars and stuff like that. I'm like, if Lucasfilm had listened to the vocal, and it's not a minority, it's a majority, the vocal majority of people who didn't watch your shows, who didn't go to your movies, who aren't buying your merchandise because they don't like the direction of Star Wars, how many millions of dollars could you have saved? Because it wasn't just people ranting, but then the movies were doing great.
But they tried to dismiss it, even up to the acolyte, as if there was valid criticism, constructive criticism, and that there was constructive criticism. It just wasn't, you weren't seeing it as that because it told you that you weren't doing it right, and you were mad because you think you're a genius and you're trying to hide behind, human shields with istophobia to say that your show was great when it wasn't. And anybody who didn't say so wasn't valid criticism. And that's what the problem has become, is that you don't listen to anybody because none of it's valid or constructive if I don't want to hear it. And that's kind of what he was basically saying at the beginning. Now he's trying to walk it back, but when he boiled it down, I just go to my critic friends who we hired here that have kissed our ass for years, and then they'll tell me if something's bad or not, but they'll do it in a nice way that I can handle. And that's basically what he just said. And I'm like, dude, grow a fucking pair. And I'm the more sensitive one between Kneon and I'm the more sensitive one. And I'm like, grow a pair.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out like what I guess my thing was like with the Metacritic rating of the critics, because the critics don't always mean shit, right? Really, at the end of the day, I'm a very logical guy. I look at the numbers, and so like if your game's selling well and you're doing well financially, like what's the big freaking deal, right?
Yeah, you can learn from some criticism to do better next time. But it's really not that hard. Just, find the criticism that you believe, even if it's mean, it has validity.
Gotta get hard. You gotta get hard.
God, would you stop saying that?
Sorry.
Make a gag that says, get hard. Stick it on your face.
Whoa. Wait, what?
After I said that, I realized that was not the way I wanted to say it. Anyway.
You said it makes me gag. We're gonna wrap this up.
God, why are you so arrogant? Anyway, yes. Don't listen to him. I won this argument.
All right.
I'm not going to make you wear that stupid shirt.
Please subscribe.
Please don't wear a shirt that says "Get hard with my husband."
Oh my God.
Thank you.
That just needs to be just because it can be anybody. Just get hard with my husband. There you go. Please subscribe.
Let me ask you this: would you like it if I were around saying "Get hard with geeky shirts"?
No.
Well, there you go. So anyway.
All right, let's wrap it up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.